I do apologize, guys, for that. I want to start off this video by saying thank you for the support on my Dark Souls 2 defense video and your comments and subscriptions. I think it's so weird that that video did so well and in my opinion was more successful than the Dark Souls is a cliche video, which did beat it by views. I think my Dark Souls 2 video, however, resonated with more of you guys, which I love. And I hope that I can continue to make more videos with this goal in mind, finding that audience. Because I'll be honest, that Dark Souls is a cliche video was a tad bit controversial. It didn't convince anyone to follow after. But aside from that crap, today I want to talk a little bit about my favorite boss in Dark Souls 2. Well, sort of boss. He then becomes a mini boss guarding the last sinner. But I think it necessary to explain quickly what to me defines a good enemy or boss. When it comes to Dark Souls bosses or enemies, and what my preferences are, I try and stay away from presentation and grandeur, especially with Dark Souls 1 and 2, because of the limitations of the overall game. I think that too much can be expected of them when it comes to presentation compared to the other games, be that Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, or Sekiro. Doesn't mean that DS1 and DS2 don't have well done presentations. It just isn't quite the overall norm like in those other later games. But to me, what typically fascinates me and quickly takes enemies from subpar fodder to favorites is model design and combat functions. These two areas are for what Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 are worth, where From Software shines their most in their implementations. For example, my runner-up favorite boss / recurring enemy in DS2, and it is not my favorite, it's the Pursuer. From a design standpoint, he looks like something straight out of Berserk, a dark knight wielding an oversized sword and shield. His entrance features him flying in on a crow and proceeds to just levitate. Now that's cool. And the way he moves specifically makes for some of my favorite combat in Dark Souls 2. It's slick, just floating through charged attacks, and while yes, sometimes his sword can grab you in absurd ways, it makes for a more visually entertaining fight that you know you're in for a good time every time he emerges from the ground. And then with combat functions, he also thrives. His moves can easily be learned, and each one telegraphs fairly well. I never parried him, however, but I'm pretty sure that you can shoot him with the ballista in your first encounter with the Pursuer. My typical strategy when engaging him in combat is just to roll to the right most every time. I never knew about ADP either, so I was working with the same iframes each run through. But by the time I learned him fully, it became one of the fights that is simply memorable and fun to engage with going forward. However, you might be wondering, if not the Pursuer, then who? Well, in one of my favorite areas in Dark Souls 2, there is a pirate ship called No Man's Wharf. I can't think of another time From Software used a pirate cove in their games either. But by the time you carry a torch from the entrance to the bell, which calls in the ship, you then rush past the enemies and drop below the deck into a claustrophobic hold. Inside is the Flexile Sentry, my favorite DS2 enemy and probably one of my favorite in the entire series. It is a lightly armored double humanoid, I think, lizard creature. Double humanoid meaning two dudes fused together. The front side, or guy with the swords, I know he is in the front because of his knees, attacks first with typical slashes that are incredibly hard to dodge without high ADP. Your stat that in DS2 dictates how well you can roll. Now, if it was just him, this fight would be, in my book, lackluster and average. However, the second humanoid, or one on the back, holds two barbed clubs. His moves are much heavier and leave frequent openings to attacks, and combined their combos or moveset implement all four weapons in a slashing and very chaotic feeling boss fight. Remember, it is an incredibly tight boss room, and I didn't know this before, but the water will slowly rise, slowing down your rolls and movements. He doesn't get affected, by the way. So as well, the fight is using DPS checks, or your damage per second in order to eliminate the enemy before it is too late. There's also a pole in the middle which comes into handy as well. Sort of like Ornstein and Smo, you can assist yourself by getting him stuck on it throughout the fight, balancing what may feel like a task too difficult. While researching more about this boss and seeing his moves while somebody else plays, trust me, this helps in seeing his moves instead of just anticipating them then dodging. I got to see how his moveset appears perfect for multi-opponent fights. Specifically, there is one move where he swings forward and follows up with an arching jump / backwards, which yes, if you are by yourself and abusing his rear, you will get punished with. However, it got me thinking about how well From Software games, not Sekiro in this context, would work in a sandbox. Just like getting to use their assets in different ways, I think communities would go crazy with, because a lot of the time their mechanics that they implement I think can go further than just typical single player experiences that only sometimes involve summons. And that being said, some of the most fun I have had in Elden Ring is through seamless co-op. But yeah, I do appreciate it if you made it this far into the video. Any support or comments are quite appreciated. Let me know if you have an enemy that you believe beats out the Flexile Sentry, or if it is complete blasphemy that I claim he is the best fight in DS2. And with that being said, thanks again, subscribe, and I am out.